I'm Marissa Cole, a 38-year-old surgeon. After years of grueling shift work, I finally managed to buy the home of my dreams, a Cape Cod beachfront villa worth $2.008 million. This place is my sanctuary, a reward for all the blood, sweat, and tears I've poured into my career, a spot where I can finally catch my breath. But then came a phone call that shattered that peace completely. It was my older brother calling, his tone laced with that familiar sense of entitlement. "We're on our way to you right now," he said. 20 of us in total. Make sure you've got beds, towels, slippers, and food ready. We're staying for 2 weeks. We'll be there in 30 minutes, so hurry up and get everything sorted. I froze in place, clutching my phone tightly. His words echoed in my ears like a slap across the face. 20 people, without even asking, are about to barge into my home. I can already picture the chaos. Strangers sprawled on the floor, ransacking my fridge, trampling all over my space. My heart is racing, not out of panic, but from a much stronger emotion. I've let him push me too far before, letting him borrow money endlessly and repeatedly breaking his promises. But this time? No way. I smile. A plan starts forming in my mind. This isn't just about my house. It's about reclaiming the control that's rightfully mine. He thinks he can just walk in here and do whatever he wants. Well, he'll soon realize just how badly he's mistaken. This story has made me reflect deeply on boundaries within families. What about you? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. After hanging up the phone, my mind drifts back to the past. Ethan's arrogant and overbearing tone isn't new at all. It's a deeply ingrained pattern that I've ignored for far too long, naively believing that family somehow meant loyalty. I was wrong. 5 years ago, Ethan came to me with his big plan to open a handcrafted coffee shop. He needed $50,000 in startup capital. At the time, I was 33, fresh off a promotion, and eager to support him. Without a second thought, I wrote him a check, fully confident that he'd repay me as promised. But the shop closed down after just 6 months, and he didn't pay me a single penny. Instead, he blamed the market crash. I chose to be forgiving, thinking that families should always give each other a second chance. Then there was my car. 2 years ago, Ethan borrowed my SUV for a weekend getaway, but it took him 3 whole months to return it. Not only had he racked up a mountain of parking tickets, but the seats were stained with coffee spills. When I confronted him about it, he just laughed it off and said I could afford a new car anyway. I was furious, yet I remained silent. My mom used to constantly remind us to keep the family harmonious. She was no longer with us by then, but her voice seemed to linger in my ears, urging me to preserve the bonds among our family members. I've always tried my best to do the right thing, even after Ethan took Grandma's pearl necklace from my dresser, claiming he was just borrowing it for his girlfriend, and I never saw that necklace again. He didn't even apologize. He just shrugged it off as if it weren't a big deal at all. What really crossed the line was what happened with his son, Caleb. When Caleb turned 16 and needed to pay tuition for private school, Ethan was too busy betting on sports to give a second thought to it. I remembered how Mom had always hoped her grandson would have the best possible future, so I ended up footing the $20,000 bill myself. All Ethan did was send me a perfunctory text of thanks, and then immediately went out and bought himself a brand new watch. At our next family dinner, I saw him wearing that watch, gleaming brightly, while Caleb's tuition had already drained my entire savings. Every time, I'd tell myself this would be the last time I'd help him, but Ethan somehow always managed to show up again and again, counting on my success, my stability, and most of all, my silence. This pattern has been with us since we were kids. Ethan is 2 years older than me, and he always finds a way to get what he wants. He'd sweet-talk our mom into giving him extra pocket money, leaving me constantly short of cash. In high school, he'd plagiarize my homework and smirk triumphantly whenever the teacher praised him for his achievements. I worked tirelessly, stayed up late studying, and built my own career from scratch, while Ethan drifted aimlessly, treating my accomplishments as if they were his own. When I got into medical school, he came to me asking for a small loan to pay his rent. I lent it to him, thinking he'd eventually grow up. But he never did. Over the years, I've lent him tens of thousands of dollars, $10,000 for his failed DJ gigs, and $5,000 for his so-called surefire investments. Every time, he'd promise to repay me, but then he'd simply vanish, only to reappear again when he needed money once more. I'm not oblivious to his endlessly demanding behavior. It's just that I've been held captive by a deep sense of guilt over my mother's teaching that family members should support one another. Ethan has perfectly exploited this very vulnerability. Every time he asks for my help, he brings my mother into it, pressuring me to give in with the words, "Mom would want me to do this too." But right now, his words, "I'm bringing 20 people to invade your villa," still echo in my ears. My long-held patience has finally shattered. All those past instances come flooding back. His repeated failure to repay loans, his stealing my belongings, his breaking promises. Now I finally see clearly. It's not about mutual support among family members at all. Rather, he's treating my success like his own personal ATM. I poured my heart and soul into buying this villa, yet he takes it for granted that he can just barge in and claim it as his own. As memories rush back, the sleepless nights spent studying late into the night, the 12-hour surgeries, every single sacrifice I made to acquire this villa, Ethan has never once acknowledged any of it. /B. In his eyes, my efforts were nothing more than resources he could tap into at will. I recalled the last time I saw him, 6 months ago, at my cousin's wedding. He was showing off his brand new boat, and only later did I learn that he bought it by selling off my old laptop, the very same laptop he'd borrowed from me in the first place. Back then, I chose to bite my tongue and keep quiet, not wanting to spoil the festive atmosphere. But now, as I watch 20 strangers about to invade my home, I've had enough. Ethan thinks he can keep taking and taking forever, and he couldn't be more wrong. 30 minutes later, the sound of engines roared up the driveway. I peered out the window and saw 3 cars and a minivan pull in. 20 strangers poured out behind Ethan, who walked ahead, kicking open the slightly ajar door and barging right in, shouting as he went, "Help yourselves, don't hold back." Carrying bags of chips, crates of beer, and pizza boxes, this bunch of people laughed shrilly. The freshly polished wooden floor was instantly covered with muddy footprints, and crumbs littered the ground everywhere. Someone casually tossed an empty can onto the carpet, and then turned around to rummage through my fridge. My sanctuary had instantly turned into a noisy garbage dump. Ethan didn't even bother to lift his eyelids as he flung his duffel bag onto the sofa, saying with a sneer, "Not bad. This lousy place finally has some use." His friends were even more brazen. They cranked up the speakers, grabbed drinks, and the deafening bass drowned out the sound of the waves completely. Someone propped their boots on the coffee table. Someone else tore open a bag of corn chips, scattering crumbs all over my white cushion. I clenched my fists, feeling a tightness in my chest that made me want to burst into tears. This was my home, yet they treated it like it didn't exist, trashing it without a second thought. I followed Ethan upstairs, his sneakers leaving gritty marks on the stairs. "Where's the master bedroom?" Without waiting for my reply, he pushed open the bedroom door, a room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, and casually tossed his jacket onto the bed. "This one'll do. It's where me and my buddy are staying. You can just divide up the other rooms yourselves," he said with an air of utter self-assurance, setting me ablaze with fury. This was a space I'd meticulously designed and tailored exclusively for myself, yet he treated it like some kind of free dormitory. "Ethan, you can't just barge into my room like this." My voice shot up, sharp and laced with barely contained anger. He turned his head, raising an eyebrow in mock amusement. "What's there to be nervous about? It's only 2 weeks, right? You've got this huge place all to yourself. Might as well let it go to waste." Down the hallway, his friends joined in the laughter, one even calling out, "Don't spoil everyone's fun." But instead of putting a stop to it, Ethan just chuckled along, adding, "It's just a party. Stop making such a big deal out of it." As he spoke, he grabbed a pillow from the bed and tossed it to his friend. "Just find somewhere to sit. Don't worry about her." All the while, he treated me like I wasn't even there. That utter disregard felt far more cutting than any outright insult ever could. The sense of violation washed over me like a tidal wave. This wasn't just about having my room occupied or my home messed up. It was about my space, my life, being recklessly trampled upon by a bunch of complete strangers. Thinking about all the effort I've put into building this, those missed surgical opportunities, the vacations I gave up, every single penny I saved to buy this villa. Ethan has seen it all. Yet he still treats my home like his personal playground. I watch one man spill beer right onto my kitchen counter without even bothering to wipe it up. Another leaves an open pizza box on the dining table, its greasy residue staining the wooden surface. The noise grows louder and louder, the clinking of bottles, the raucous chatter of people drowning out the music. I realize they have absolutely no respect for everything I've worked so hard to build, and my chest feels tighter and tighter. I want to scream, to kick them all out, but I hold myself back. Ethan's indifference hurts me more than the chaos unfolding before me. He's turned my home into a free guest house, as if my boundaries don't exist at all. I follow Ethan into the bedroom. His jacket is tossed carelessly onto my bed. His sneakers leave scuff marks all over the floor, and he even starts rifling through my dresser, searching for a pillow, completely oblivious to my presence. This brazen arrogance utterly ignited my fury. I forced myself to suppress it, speaking in a firm tone and ordering them to leave immediately. But he turned around and sneered, his face dripping with mockery. Leave? Don't make such a big deal out of it. This house is huge. There's more than enough room for everyone to stay comfortably. Why are you making such a fuss? Seeing that I wasn't budging, he rolled his eyes again. We're family, aren't we supposed to share? You're hogging all this space like some miser. His tone was so matter-of-fact, as if my home were just another park he could stroll into whenever he pleased. The word family felt like a heavy hammer striking me, but I quickly came to my senses. This wasn't harmony at all. It was blatant aggression. Downstairs, our friends started egging him on. Some laughed at me for being too serious, while others urged me not to spoil the vacation. The whole room was filled with laughter mingled with music, and they treated me like some kind of joke. Ethan didn't even try to stop them. Instead, he gave me a smug shrug and said, "See? Everyone's fine with it. This is all just you making a scene." Their eyes were filled with disdain. I clenched my teeth, my hands trembled, and a suffocating tightness gripped my chest, but I forced myself to hold back, refusing to lose it. "I'm not joking. Not one of you can stay here," I said, my voice low yet unnervingly firm. Seeing this, Ethan suddenly changed his tone, playing the victim by appealing to our older brother bond and the shared memories we've lived through. Then he lowered his voice even further and mentioned Mom. Mom would want us to stick together, you know. Mom had always been his most powerful weapon, but I knew full well that she'd never tolerate him treating me this way. Standing alone against 20 people's mockery, though I felt momentarily powerless, the pent-up resentment within me finally erupted. I was no longer the younger sister who'd always compromised for the sake of peace and harmony. This villa, built with blood, sweat, and tears, wasn't something he had any right to dictate or criticize. "This has nothing to do with family," I said, my voice cutting through the cacophony. "It's about respect, and you've shown absolutely none." His smile showed the slightest hint of a crack for the first time, but soon it returned to its usual composure, and he waved me off with a dismissive gesture. "You'll figure it out," he said, then turned around and went back to packing his bag. His friends erupted into cheers, their support forming an invisible wall between us. Standing there, my heart racing, I knew I couldn't put up with this anymore. I quietly slipped into the study, closed the door, and the music and laughter downstairs faded just a bit. My hands trembling, I dialed Bridget's number. Ethan's words, "We're family, Marissa," still echoed in my ears. Bridget answered on the second ring, her voice warm yet firm. "Marissa, what's wrong? You don't sound yourself." I let out a long sigh. Just hearing her voice eased some of the tightness in my chest. Bridget Cox had been my rock ever since medical school. She was the first person to see through Ethan's facade. I told her everything. He showed up uninvited, bringing 20 strangers with him and turning my villa into a party venue. He brazenly took over my bedroom and even used the word family to try to silence me. How dare he say that? Bridget's tone turned sharp, shattering the fog of my confusion. Marissa, this is simply unacceptable. This is your home, not his private resort, and you've put so much effort into making it what it is today. Her words felt like a lifeline, pulling me back from the brink of self-doubt. I paced back and forth in the study, staring at the photo on the wall. Our picture from the graduation ceremony, Bridget and I, reminding myself of all the hard work I'd put in to get to where I am today. I'm going to make him leave, I said, my voice low and steady. But he just laughed it off, and his friends joined in, as if I were the one being unreasonable. You're not at fault. He's the one who crossed the line, and you've got to stand up to him firmly, Bridget said without a hint of hesitation. Before she'd even finished speaking, she added, Listen, you live in a gated community, right? Call the community's security team. They deal with stuff like this all the time, especially here on Cape Cod. And then call your lawyer. Show them your property deed. Ethan doesn't have any ownership rights over your house. You've got to make that perfectly clear to him. Her advice was practical and straightforward, exactly what I needed. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. My mind was already racing. Security and a lawyer. I repeated those two words, feeling as if I'd finally found something solid to hold on to. This might actually work. Bridget's voice softened slightly, yet remained firm. You can do this, Marissa. Don't let him bully you or take away the space that's rightfully yours. This is your stuff. As we were chatting, a vivid memory suddenly surfaced in my mind. I was 12 years old then, sitting at the kitchen table with my mom, Joan Cole, who was chopping vegetables for dinner. Ethan had once again borrowed my bike without asking, and when he returned it, the bike was scratched and lying abandoned in the driveway. Fuming with anger, I complained to my mom, but she looked at me calmly yet seriously and said, Marissa, your stuff is yours. Others can only take what you're willing to give. Respect starts with yourself. So many years have passed, yet her words remain crystal clear. Though Joan is no longer with us, that lesson has been deeply etched into my heart. Ethan wasn't just occupying my room. He was trampling on everything I'd worked so hard to build, trampling on everything Mom had taught me to cherish. Bridget's voice pulled me back to the present. Are you still listening? I nodded again, clutching my phone tightly. Yes, I just remembered what Mom used to say about respect. She'd definitely hate what Ethan is doing right now. Bridget sighed. You're right. Joan would call him out in a heartbeat. And you've got to do the same. You're not alone, you know? I'm here for you, and you have the strength to handle this. Her confidence was contagious, igniting a spark of courage within me. I'm not powerless. I've got options, security guards, a lawyer, and most importantly, my own determination. After hanging up, my heart was still racing, but it had already calmed down considerably. I opened my laptop and found the contact information for the community security team. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitating for a moment. In my mind, Ethan's smug smile flashed by, the way he casually dismissed everything, but then Mom's words and Bridget's encouragement surfaced as well. This is my home, the sanctuary I've earned through sweat and sacrifice. I'll never let Ethan take it away from me, not ever again. I dialed the security team's number, introducing myself in a calm voice. Hello, this is Marissa Cole. I need someone to come to my residence and help out. As I spoke, the fire within me burned brighter and brighter. I'd had enough of being bullied. Remembering Bridget's words, I picked up my phone once more and quickly dialed the community security team. This is Marissa Cole, I said. Despite the chaos downstairs, my voice remained remarkably steady. I've got uninvited guests here who refuse to leave. The operator responded calmly and professionally, promising that a security patrol would arrive within 10 minutes. Then, I called my lawyer, Karen. She was the one who'd helped me with the transfer of ownership for the villa in the first place. Karen, I need you to confirm my property deed, I told her, explaining Ethan's trespassing on my property. She promised to email me the documents within an hour, her tone laced with resentment toward him. I opened my laptop, rummaged through the files, and finally located the deed myself, making sure every detail was perfectly in place. This wasn't just a phone call, it was my way of drawing a clear line. As I headed downstairs, the music grew louder, its deafening rhythm shaking the windows. Ethan was in the kitchen, cracking open another beer, while his friends sprawled lazily in my living room. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was coming next. "Ethan," I said, standing in the doorway, "I'm giving you one last chance. Get your friends out of here. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to take further action." He didn't even look up. He just took a sip of his beer, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Further action? Are you seriously going to call the police just because of a family visit?" His friends burst into giggles, and one of them tossed a handful of potato chips into his mouth, sending crumbs falling onto my carpet. Their indifference hurt me deeply, yet I remained steadfast, my resolve unshaken in the slightest. The party showed no sign of letting up. Someone had turned the music up even louder, its bass shaking the very floor beneath my feet. A woman started dancing right on my coffee table, spilling her drink from the cup onto the glass surface. Another man rummaged through my pantry, helpfully pulling out snacks I'd carefully stocked up for myself. The air was thick with the scent of beer and pizza, and my sanctuary had completely transformed into a circus. I felt the pressure mounting, my heart racing faster and faster. Their laughter seemed to mock my request. Ethan leaned against the counter, grinning triumphantly. "You're wasting your time, Marissa," he said, waving his hand dismissively. "We're not leaving, not now. Just enjoy the vibe." His arrogance felt like a slap in the face, spurring me into action. I pulled out my phone, stepped back, and snapped a photo of the scene before me. Scattered empty cans, greasy pizza boxes piled high on the table, muddy footprints on the floor. I zoomed in to capture the woman dancing on the coffee table. Her high-heeled shoes had scratched the surface, and the man rummaging through the pantry, tearing open several bags of potato chips. I even snapped a shot of Ethan, holding a beer in his hand with a smug grin, as if he were the real master of the place. These weren't just photos, they were evidence, proof of everything he'd done to my home. I sent the photos to Karen, my fingers typing with unwavering determination. "Document exactly where I'm at right now." She replied instantly. "Save these photos carefully. When this gets to court, they'll be invaluable." The noise grew louder and louder. Ethan's other group of friends were playing cards in the dining room, shouting and laughing. I stood in the corner, watching them recklessly trample on my space, my chest heavy with frustration. Every laugh, every clink of bottles, it felt like a direct challenge to my authority. I remembered Bridget's advice: security guards, lawyers, evidence, and suddenly, everything became clear. Ethan thought he could just ignore me, but I'd never back down. I checked my email and found Karen's message had arrived. Attached was my property deed, proving that this villa belongs to me, not to him. Clutching my phone tightly, the photos and documents felt like my shield against his arrogance. As the seconds ticked by, the security team was about to arrive, and I'd already prepared myself to put an end to all this. 10 minutes later, the security team arrived. 2 black SUVs pulled up onto the driveway, and 3 uniformed security officers stepped out. Leading the group was Officer Craig Spencer, whose towering figure blocked the doorway. As he knocked on the door, his voice was calm yet commanding. "Miss Cole, we've received your call for help." I opened the door, and though the room was in complete chaos, my heartbeat was strangely steady. The music was still playing, and Ethan's friends were sprawled across my furniture, completely oblivious to the change in the situation. I handed the property deed to Officer Spencer. The document felt unusually heavy in my hands. "These people have illegally broken into my home," I said, pointing at the group. "I've already asked them to leave, but they've refused." Officer Spencer glanced over the deed and nodded. "All right, everyone," he shouted, his voice cutting through the loud music. "This is a private residence. You need to pack up and leave right now." Suddenly, the music stopped, and the room fell utterly silent. Ethan pushed his way through the crowd, his face flushed with anger. "Are you kidding me?" he glared at me. "Marissa, you actually called security to deal with your own brother?" His tone was laced with resentment, but I saw right through his little game. Yet another attempt to twist the truth. "You're the one who pushed me into this, Ethan," I said calmly. "This is my home." His friends started getting restless. Some muttered quietly under their breath, while others grabbed their bags. But not everyone was willing to cooperate. A man wearing a hoodie, clearly drunk, staggered and spilled red wine onto my beige carpet. The stain spread outward like blood. Another guy tried to steady him but accidentally knocked over a glass figurine from the coffee table. The figurine shattered on the floor with a shrill crack, leaving a deep scratch on the tabletop. I frowned, yet remained focused, quickly snapping photos of the damage with my phone. Ethan noticed and sneered. "How typical. You're even taking pictures as evidence, just like some suspicious landlord." "You're truly pathetic, Marissa," he said. His words hurt me deeply, yet I remained calm and nodded at Officer Spencer. "Here's another piece of evidence," I remarked. Ethan wasn't done yet. He whipped out his phone and started typing rapidly. "I'm curious to see how long your precious reputation can last." He pressed the send button with a cold smirk. A few seconds later, my phone vibrated. It was a social media notification. He'd posted something accompanied by a photo of my villa with the caption, "My sister is so selfish that she kicked her own family out just to keep the mansion all to herself." What an ungrateful wretch. Those words stabbed at me like knives, painting me as some kind of villain. A wave of fury surged through me, but I forced myself to suppress it. This wasn't about his online antics. This was about my home. "Officer Spencer," I said, handing him Ethan's post. "He's still slandering me right now." The officer frowned and jotted down the relevant information. "We'll deal with this later. Right now, let's get these people out of here." The security team sprang into action, guiding Ethan's friends to pack up their belongings. Some complied right away, slinging their backpacks over their shoulders, but others, egged on by Ethan, hesitated stubbornly. "This is absurd," he shouted as he paced back and forth in the living room. "Marissa, you're really going to abandon your family just for the sake of a house?" His voice trembled slightly, but I knew full well it was all an act, another performance, playing the victim, just like always. Standing beside Officer Spencer with my arms crossed, I said calmly yet firmly, "It's not just a house, Ethan. It's my home, and you've shown absolutely no respect for it at all." My voice was steady and resolute, even though his friends were all glaring at me with disapproval. The officers began escorting people out, carefully checking their ID cards to make sure no one was left behind. A woman protested, claiming she'd only spilled a little red wine, but Officer Spencer remained firm. "Ma'am, you have to leave right now." I followed them, watching as the group trudged toward their cars. Some muttered curses under their breath, while others still chuckled and joked around, as if it were all just some kind of prank. Ethan was the last to leave. He grabbed his duffel bag and glared at me with icy intensity. "You'll regret this, Marissa," he said. His eyes were cold and unyielding, but I didn't flinch. "No, Ethan. You're the one who'll end up regretting it." The officers escorted him out, and the door slammed shut behind them, leaving the room plunged into an eerie silence. My home was finally mine again, but the battle wasn't over yet. Once the last car had rolled off the driveway, utter stillness returned. The villa felt strangely empty. Without the music or laughter, it almost felt alien, even a bit unsettling. Standing in the doorway, I looked at the chaos inside, my heart heavy yet resolute. My home had finally returned to me, but the price was all too obvious. I stepped inside, and the exhaustion of the entire day washed over me. I began inspecting the damage throughout the house. In the living room, a deep red wine stain marred the beige carpet. Its edges were frayed from people's careless footsteps. On the once immaculate glass coffee table, a long, jagged scratch now stood out vividly in the afternoon sunlight. I ran my finger along the scratch, and a sharp pang shot through my heart. Each scratch, each stain, every single one was proof that Ethan had ignored me completely. I picked up a bucket and cleaning supplies, determined to clean the carpet. But no matter how hard I scrubbed, the wine stain refused to budge. The fabric seemed to have soaked up all my frustration. I turned next to the coffee table, wiping away the stains on its surface, but the scratch remained, a permanent scar that would never fade. The kitchen was in even worse shape. Empty cans were scattered across the counter, and greasy fingerprints covered every surface of the cabinets. I cleaned silently, each swipe feeling like a tiny step toward reclaiming the space that had been invaded. This wasn't just about cleaning, it was about slowly erasing the traces of their intrusion. But as I swept the floor, I knew clearly that some things could never be restored. Ethan had crossed a line I could never forgive. I opened my phone and blocked his number. That decision felt as heavy as cutting a thread I'd been holding onto for years. Family is supposed to be something profoundly meaningful, yet Ethan had turned that bond into a weapon aimed directly at hurting me. I thought back to our childhood, the countless times we tolerated his demands, simply because we believed in family harmony. No more. I also blocked him on social media, severing the very last shred of connection. This decision breaks my heart, but it was necessary. It took me so many years to build this life. The villa, the career, the peace. I'm not going to let guilt pull me back into the past anymore. Ethan is no longer my responsibility. Later, I checked his social media posts, and the very posts that had accused me of being selfish ended up backfiring spectacularly. The comments section erupted in a storm of criticism. Strangers and even mutual acquaintances alike lashed out at him. He showed up uninvited and brought 20 people along. This isn't family. This is pure self-interest. One person wrote. Another added, "She worked so hard to buy that house. Please respect her." Even those fans who'd once stood by him now began questioning his claims, and several people even reached out to me directly, expressing their support and shock at his behavior. Ethan had tried to humiliate me, but instead, he ended up humiliating himself. His credibility completely crumbled under the weight of his own actions, and I didn't feel any sense of vindication, only exhaustion. His failure wasn't my victory, it was simply an ending. I sat on the terrace, watching the waves crash against the shore, reflecting on the lesson this experience has taught me. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's self-preservation. Family members don't have the right to disrespect you, no matter how close your blood ties may be. I spent far too much time compromising just to keep the peace, but peace at the cost of my dignity wasn't worth it at all. This villa, this life, I deserved it, and no one, not even Ethan, had any right to take it away from me. I remembered my mom's teachings, her words about respect, and realized that standing up for myself firmly is the best way to honor her memory. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors that I get to decide whether to open or close. Thank you all for listening to me share this story. Sharing something so personal isn't easy, but I hope it resonates with you. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with someone you love? How did you handle it? Feel free to share your story in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please click the subscribe button. Your support means so much to me. I'll keep sharing authentic stories like these, and let's keep this conversation going.